Alrighty, so let's look at this week's Mona workshop. I'm going to do something a bit different this week. I'm going to sort of look at discussing or explaining the different approaches that you could create an asset depending on what kind of things you're trying to do. So this will be more like a random conversation to the ether to describe different approaches to that sort of thing. So let's jump in with that in mind. So in this case, let's, how can I do this? I might do this in Photoshop. I should have done a presentation. I need to do a presentation, but here we are. Big one. Okay. So, So what I'd like to look at is kind of the different approaches to creating an asset in Mona. Well, basically for any metaverse. So basically, unless you're going for pixel streaming, which is definitely one approach, but there's a bit of a delay when you're playing the asset, because you're basically streaming a whole space to a computer. Now, once we get super fast internet all over the world, this will be fine. But it depends on the experience you're going for. So I think I get the feeling that Unreal is going more that direction. Pros and cons. But when you're looking at WebGL, which is what Mona uses, you are kind of limited in regards to how much your browser can handle in regards to poly count, materials, and all sorts of things. Now, there's ways to get around that, but the way you create your assets is probably one of the most important in regards to keeping reasonable poly counts and how many different materials. So, when it comes to that, basically, I'd like to look at some of the different approaches. So, asset creation techniques. That's what we're going to go with. And it's really easy to read because it's just straight up white. There we go. All right. So let's go down here and go with one. Now, one approach, and once again, depending on the asset that you're creating, the approach you use will be different. So some things you'll go with one, so other things you'll go with others. Some things sort of require certain ones. So there's definitely different approaches to do it. It's just a case of understanding the options and then choosing which one is the best. So, and I'm not going to be focusing on what's the most common, because it depends on what you do. So let's just go with the first one that comes to my head, which is basically, what could we call this one? Custom UV assets. Okay. So a custom UV asset, I feel like this would be better in a Google Doc. Let's do, maybe I'll convert it over. Custom UV assets. So this would be used on, let's do this. Uses include high polygon assets that are baked onto low polygon assets. Let's reduce the size of that. Or let's just make that normal. Regular. There we go. So custom UV assets uses high polygon. So say, for example, if I had a character, and this is where this comes up a lot. If I had a character, I would create a high polygon asset in a sculpting tool. Blender has sculpting, ZBrush has sculpting, 3D Code has sculpting, a few different assets have sculpting now. You might actually want to do this on a detailed asset that you make in Revit or Rhino as well. So, say for example, if you were doing a sculpture or a detailed asset where there's a lot of polygons but a lot of detail, you would need to put that onto a low polygon asset because putting it straight into Unity to work in Mona will be usually quite a low performing space because there's too many polygons. So that's one. So what this will do usually, the poly count will be quite low, and then you will use the textures to bake that high polygon asset onto the low polygon asset, and what looks like most of the detail is the same, but it's really quite different. So that one's quite useful for lots of different situations like that. Next one, let's go with tiled materials. Uses. This one's very good for larger assets that require like one material, maybe not one, require what would come across as flat materials. E.g., this would be buildings, like walls, floors, etc. Right? Now, what this does is you would create an asset. Well, let's go into Blender and have a look at some of these. Okay. So an example of the first one, custom UV assets, might not be able to do it very well, but we can give it a shot. So I'm going to duplicate the cube, call the duplicate low. And then I'm going to add a multi-resolution on the high. Now that's not going to work very well because it doesn't show what we want. So I'm going to actually just select everything as a visual idea of what we're trying to do here. So let's go mark sharp. Yep. Add modifier. This is weight normal. Down here, we want to put this on corner angle and keep sharp. And see what happens when I do this. Oh, why didn't that work? Ah. That's why. Try that again. No. He doesn't like that one. Okay, we'll try a different approach then. Let's grab all of those and then do bevel. So put that in there, like super nice quality. Let's add a bunch of these as an example, right? So it's simple there. But say, for example, if you had an asset like this, and this was a character. So the polygons were in the millions, or even the tens of thousands, like the 90,000 polygons would be too high for a special character. So we would need to project this information onto the low polygon. Now this one, I would probably try to do that and put like shade smooth on, and then we could project the size of that onto that, and that will be what we want. Now the problem with this method, is it a problem? The condition of this method is that we need to make sure that our low polygon UV map is inside this one square. And that one square is going to be one of the sizes that are sort of standard for most texture types. So it might be 512 by 512, 1024 by 1024, 2048 by 2048. Generally, I don't recommend going to 4K textures because those are ridiculously big in file size, and that will eat into your space quite significantly. And you want to keep that, like, the only 4K I've had in any of the spaces that I've made is the skybox, because that takes up a large amount of space, and only if you could see a lot of the skybox. So there's that. So in this case, you would use things like UV tools. So I would maybe do arrows, and then do things like mark seam. We would probably do these so they don't stretch too much. So just one on each of these corners. Yep. That one and that one. We'll do a mark seam here. So if we go unwrap, you'll have this, which is a prime example of why we need to do one more. I hope. Yeah. So there we go. But in this case, this wastes a lot of time. Not time, a lot of space. So what I might do is grab these ones, split that, rotate it, go higher, and then we can sort of scale those up to be as big as we can, and then they're using like more of the space, which is what we need. Now, of course, this is wasted, but you could use that for other assets or elements like that. So the catch with custom UV assets is basically it is a custom UV, and you can't really tile or do anything cool with that. It is literally in that size, and that is limited by the texture size. So there's that. Another approach, let's clear the seams and then just do this one, Smart UV Project. That'll do that as well. So there's a few different ways to unwrap, and I've covered that in other tutorials and workshops and building shells, so we don't need to go into too much detail there. Now, a tiled material is very different. So we can get, say for example, we don't need the high polygon because that's not going to be used at all. We're just going to use this low. Now, this we could, if we wanted to, make this as big as we want, depending on the tiled texture. So this would be one texture that would look something like marble or whatever. So let's look at some examples of that. Textures. So if you go to polyhaven.com, you have a bunch of tiled textures, which will go across your assets. So let's do something cool like, I don't know, round. Yeah, let's just do that. So if these sort of squares, you can't really see the square here because it's kind of a, oh, we could do this maybe. So you can see it's tiled. Ah, there we go. So that is a tile, and in certain cases, it will be obvious that it's a tiled asset, but sometimes, depending on the quality of the tiled asset, it might not, like it might look good. So it depends on what you're sort of looking at with that. Yeah. Go. But because it's tileable, this can be edited in scaling the UVs on the UV, or I can scale the UVs on in Unity, for example. So let's go to, which space would be good for that? Yeah, let's just go to the Fall Guys one. That'll do. So I can scale this, make it really big, and then this texture will be tiled accordingly. So if we make or look at a material, so we got this. So you could use tiling here, for example. So if I wanted to, I could do sort of 10 and 10, and it completely changes a few things. So there's multiple ways to create assets with tileable textures. So if this is marble, for example, this whole box could be very easily made as long as it's unwrapped and it looks like tiled correctly. Scale it as you need to, and then we have that. So that's tiled materials. Pretty easy. The next one we're going to look at is trim sheets. Trim sheets are also good kind of for everything. So let's do this. High polygon assets into low polygon excess. Usually very detailed and custom to that object. That's going to cut there, so I'm going to have to move that to that. There we go. E.g. characters, hero assets like sculptures, complex pillars, maybe. Let's change that. Complex pillars might be better with a trim sheet. So sculptures and sofas, etc. Depending on the sofa. Now, tile materials, larger assets require flat materials. Buildings, walls, floors. Trim sheets is kind of in the middle. Medium detail assets. That that have a mix of tiled and medium detailed elements. Now this could be anything, to be honest. So I could have, and I've done a tutorial on basically a trim sheet of a whole character, basically. Is it a character? No. No. Metaverse. So way back in the Never videos, where is it? Actually, no, what would be better is the docs. Trim sheets. So a trim sheet is basically a more complex texture that we assign according to our asset. And the thing is, this creates a complex or semi-complex asset with one material call, which is very, very good. So if we were going to do this, we would maybe sort of edit the asset a little bit in order to modify what we do here. So if I Control A to make sure that when we do it, let's go with Unwrap, Smart UV Project. That's good. But in this case, I actually want that to be one line, so I could use a tileable section of the trim sheet. So I'm going to grab those two and that, and then go Mark Seam. And then once again, I'm just going to grab these. so it doesn't stretch. Mark scene. And then when we can unwrap it, it won't work correctly. Because I did that. Okay, let's try that again. Yep, nearly done. One there, one there. Right. So say, for example, if we had a trim sheet that at the top, we had a cool sort of detail that took up this whole line. So we could actually do that, because if that tiles across, which it should, we can get away with this really easily. And say, for example, these ones, we could just put overlapping here. And scale that up as needed to. Once again, not going into that area, but this is perfectly fine. So that would be how you would use trim sheets. Once again, very similar to this. So that would be the loop at the top, and then maybe this whole bottom area would be the bottom. And you can create, once again, reduce your numbers. You can reduce the, what do we call it? You can reduce the draw calls of materials, because that's very important when it comes to WebGL, because each time it pulls up a new material, without any of the things that you do in Unity, such as optimization of occlusion. So if you don't see it, you can't. If you can't see it, it doesn't render it. Or batching. So if it has a bunch of assets that have the same material, it will sort of combine those into one draw call. But that material has to be exactly the same on all of the assets. So there are different assets of creating your tools. So these are kind of the three ones that I will always use. Now, on top of these, you may want to reduce these, but you can, and use multiple materials on one asset. So this is pretty common with tiled materials. So say, for example, I'll have a room, the floor, the walls, and the ceiling will be 3 different materials, because I want the floor to be tiled, I want the walls to be stucco, for example, and the ceiling to be metal. Why not? So that would be 3 draw calls, which is quite expensive for one asset. But because it's very large, and if you had a whole house based on that, a whole house based on 3 materials is probably not that bad. So there's always a balance between how many draw calls, how many polygons, how much detail, and all of those. So that's how you design the approach to your asset. So there's that. So let's go into some of the quick summary of what goes into an asset creation. So requirements, recommendations. Let's do that. Poly count needs to be as low as possible. Now, once again, like if you're using curved objects, these ones are the ones that are the most tricky, because everyone wants like a really smooth curve. But of course, that poly count, because each element is going to be quite high, you'll probably not want to do that, because the poly count is just too high. So if that curve is very important and detailed, I would maybe look into custom UV assets. Otherwise, I would probably just go with either of these two, because when it comes down to it, a smooth asset, kind of like this, you can see this. So that's like 1, 2, 3 polygons. But if you look at this, it's actually quite smooth. The only thing that gives the element away is the edge or the silhouette of the asset. So being able to adjust an asset to that level that is good comes down to, where is it? Which one did I make it? This one. Yeah, these ones. So for example, this looks great and very smooth, but it's very high polygon, and that will slow down your space 100%. This one is lower, but if you put the smooth on, you don't notice it as much except for the edge. Like this and this looks the same. And this would be okay with like a hero asset, like something that's going to be large on the camera or very important to the space, like a sculpture or a character. A VRM may be okay with this. But then you start looking at things that are a little less polygonal is the one I'm after, such as this and this, for things that are less important. So being able to design to the poly count and then create the best way to create that asset is a very important skill. So poly count as low as possible according to the assets, one of them, importance. Material count as low as possible as well. Is this an important thing? Not really. You just want material count as low as possible. That's why trim sheets are great. Like, you can do a lot of detail with a trim sheet with one material, and that's amazing. Whereas if you're doing a custom UV asset, each asset is its own material, regardless of what it needs to do, depending on the kind of detail that is in there. Tile materials also make a lot of materials, because each different material is going to be a whole material for it. So tile materials is not as good. So let's do that. Pros. Easy. And quick. Cons. Usually uses many materials. Let's grab that and put it on the other ones. Pros. High detail. Custom. High and custom. Put those two together. High and custom detail. Expensive on texture size. Because each asset is one texture. Or many textures if you're looking at normal materials and other ones like that. So texture sizes are usually pretty big on a custom UV asset. Tile materials, however, can be smaller because they tile. Reasonable texture size if used well. That works. Trim sheets. Pros. Good level of detail. Significantly less draw calls because it's one material. Cons. No cons. Trim sheets are great. Maybe, because it depends on the asset, maybe less detail than maybe less detail. I'll leave it at that. And what was the other one? No, just maybe less detail. Sure, there's another one. Something else that I forget at the moment. So yeah, there's that. Okay. So when it comes to your assets, you want your poly count to be as low as possible and the material count to be as low as possible. If you're animating it, you will probably need to do or have good edge loops if animating, especially with bones, e.g. BRMs. Edge loops also help with designing your asset and editing your asset. So it might take a little bit longer to make like good, clean edge loops. So for example, if we look at the high polygon actually, and get rid of that, each of these is a very clean edge loop. So if I want to do that, I can select the whole thing. Whereas if this went down, it would select all of them. So edge loops are very, very useful skill in creating your asset accordingly. So we've got that. Where is it? This one. Okay. So yeah, that's kind of where it's at when it comes to deciding how to make your asset. Now, when it comes to yeah, I think that's basically it. So when it comes to choosing an asset, so say for example, I need to make a sofa. I'm not going to go with one of these just because it's a sofa, e.g. this one. I would go if it's a sofa that has like the cushioning effect with the bubbles and has a lot of that. That said, if you're really good with trim sheets, you could actually get away with a sofa that uses trim sheets. So it's amazing what people can do. I think there's a really crazy example. I'll see if I can find it. Crazy examples of trim sheets. There was one space that was made, I think it was in Unreal, and it doesn't really matter which engine it is. But the way they used it was just kind of crazy. So 80 level does some good tutorials on this sort of thing, where basically this whole thing is used with one or two materials. It's a very complicated material, but the way they apply all of these assets can get very good results with very few materials. Sci-fi is really easy. So if you want to like practice using trim sheets, just go, just make a texel. I don't know, what do you call it? Just make a trim sheet made of sci-fi stuff and just go nuts. It's kind of surprising how far you can take it. It's actually quite fun. So yeah, trim sheets great. I would consider trim sheets to be one of the things that many builders don't have the skills for, but would like improve considerably their spaces because of what it allows you to do. So that's super useful there. I think most of my space actually. Let's go to that. One I made, this one. Most of these, pretty much everything in this space was made with, I think, 3 materials or 4 materials. So, for example, the floors were made with a hexagon cut down and then moved the trim sheet to sort of create that like tiling effect. And then you get things like these corner here with the arrow, which looks really good because that shape doesn't exist in the trim sheet, but it does 100% exist on this sheet here. So that's kind of fun. These sort of couch situations, also that's just one tile across the screen, and then applied in a way that actually makes that look really good. So that would be an example of what you could do with a sofa. These walls, same again. A cut sort of above my head, and another one above my head, and another one above my head, and another one above my head here, and creating those lines in the asset where you add elements to the model to work with the texture rather than creating the asset for the UV to work later, if that makes sense. Most of the end is done with like I think that's one material at the end. So yeah, trim sheets are super, super useful when you're doing interesting stuff like that. Same here again, sort of a hexagonal shape with different elements of design, I guess you could say. So yeah, trim sheets for the win. Okay, so on that, let's make a quick asset. So, any suggestions? Actually, let's have a look at our Fall Guy space and think of something we need. Go through the process of what is the best way to make it. The problem with this space is I've made most of this space with like one material, e.g. this one, because I've used trim sheets for the whole space. So one option is we kind of move away from that to show something, show something else. But yeah, not too sure. Maybe not the best example. Let's get rid of this one and have a look at our karaoke space and see if there's anything we need there. Right. So we've got some drink machines, which I did. Now that is a prime example of a custom asset. So the custom UVs. So we have our one texture, our assets are baked into that, because we have all of these sort of like very fine details. That said, I could have maybe used trim sheets if I wanted to. But yeah, I think with the sign as it is, the custom UV is a good way to do it. Also, this asset can therefore be like texture asset and get that out into the wild if I wanted to. Now we need some mugs and cups and bowls and stuff. So let's do that. So let's go through the process. We could just make a simple asset and do a tiled material, but I don't think that will be very interesting. Because I would like maybe a little bit of detail on the bottom, and sort of like nice edges on some of it. We could do custom UV assets, or we could do trim sheets. And I'm wondering if we could do like an advanced trim sheet. So things like normal map loops that can kind of do interesting things with our asset. And I've been meaning to play with this for a little bit, so I have a feeling that could work. So let's do that. So yeah. Now, what is the best way? Let's make a quick asset. I'm gonna get rid of these guys. So if you want to create a trim sheet, what you need to do is we're going to create a plane, which is what we're going to project everything onto. And the UV map is already done for that. So what we need to do is put everything under it that we want to project onto. So we got 2 by 2 by 2 by 2. So let's look at some elements here. So I'm actually going to move this plane up to maybe there, and then get rid of it, and then we don't have to worry about getting in the way here. So what kind of detail do we want? So most of these assets are going to be sort of shaped. They're going to be very simple, low polygon, but I want the detail to be really nice. So I'm going to add a cylinder. Yeah, 32 should be enough. Take that. Shade smooth. That looks good. And then scale that down. Yeah, maybe there. So that would offer sort of a good what would you call it? Beveled shape. Now I want to do that again, but I want to create sort of like a longer version, if that makes sense. So I'm actually going to grab this, I'm going to duplicate it, move it down, and do it to there. And then I'm going to get rid of all of these. Now, hopefully, so that way we have like a bit of low. We can do some interesting shapes with that. We can do interesting shapes with that. And once again, we can loop these across. What else might we want to do? Thinking cups and stuff. That could be the edge. Can do some interesting stuff with that. And I feel like we need to do the opposite direction, if that makes sense. So I'm just going to delete these ones because they're not going to be used. Now we're going to grab that and then duplicate it. Turn it upside down, like so. Useful in different ways. So we don't want it to be too big or too small. It's just trying to figure out what is the best way to sort of do some of these shapes with enough room around them to make the shapes we want. Let's move that one up a bit as well. All right. So we have our shapes. I think this one is going to be the wrong way around. For that, we can go there and go face orientation and do that. Now this is incorrect, so we're going to grab those and flip them just to make sure that they go the right way. So. All right. Good, good. Now I'm going to join all of these together because that'll save a step later. So let's go base high, high, and base low. Now let's use, because we're just after the normal map here, I'm going to actually put that a bit closer. Now this one needs to have a material. So let's go new. Let's call it base. And then we can go to, which one is it? Shading, this one. Right. So we have this because we created the material here. So base. Now, in this case, all we need is to add an image texture. So an add texture, image texture, put it there. Doesn't need to connect. We just want something to bake into. So let's go new. Let's make this, we can scale it down later. So, then go OK. That is selected, and that's all we need to do. Next, we need to go to render properties here, put it to cycles. My GPU is pretty good, so I'm going to use that to save a bit of time. And then we've got bake down here. Now, we want the normal, which is that one. We want selected to active, because we're going to select that to bake onto that. Image textures is correct, and margin is also correct. So yeah, that's all we need to do there, I think. So once again, because of this technique, this is what we need. Extrusion point, let's go 0.1. Let's see how that goes. This just adjusts depending on how it goes. So because selected to active, we need to make sure that the thing we're baking onto is last. So this could be a bunch of assets if I wanted to, and then press that one. But in this case, it's just that, pressing shift. Interesting. So make sure you do that and then control on the last one, not shift on the last one, because that doesn't come up. So control on that one. So that's low. And then we can go bake. There we go. Did it work? No. Why did that not work? Yeah, because I'm an idiot. That's why. So 0.3 meters, 0.4 meters. Let's try that again. Better. All right. So notice like this is a 2 meter by 2 meter. So like 10 centimeters would be like, wouldn't have projected enough. So basically, once again, playing with these allows you to get to the things you want. I have a feeling that this isn't getting projected all the way down because that is meant to be a curve. So I'm going to add a little bit more to that and see how that goes. Or not. Not sure. But these are good. This works for me. These are interesting. I don't want it to work properly. 1, 2. Give that a shot. Nope, doesn't like that one. Didn't click the thing. Oh, that's interesting. Hang on. So go high, press shift, press space low, and that doesn't select properly. But if I do that, press shift, and then it does. Interesting. So yeah, shift or control, see how you go. There we go. Play with the numbers. So this is a very simple example of a trim sheet. Now we're going to just do the normal map. That's the only thing we're going to be worried about. But of course you could add color. If you want to do that, you have all of these tools that you can use to bake information from a high polygon onto a low polygon, depending on your asset. So let's grab this and grab this and put it somewhere. We do this one. So 13 trim sheets. Okay. So we're getting rid of those two because now we can start making some actual things. So let's have a look. So let's make a bowl. That'll be easy. Oh, we can look at this one. This one's quite fun to do. So I'm going to add a mesh cube, scale it down, and then I'm going to delete most of it. Reasons I will show you in a second. Dink, 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 dink. Delete edges. That one, and that one. Okay. Now, the reason I'm doing this is because I will show you. So I'm going to use one edge, and I'm just going to create an asset like a bowl. Now, I can use E to sort of grab elements that we're looking at. Let's go maybe one more like that. Move it across, and then down again. Excellent. I'm going to ZX0 those and just make sure they are at actual 0. Like that, which looks good. I also want to move them up a bit, make sure they are flat. So for that one, we can go X scale SZ0. So that'll work that. Now, the reason I'm doing that and the reason I'm putting that to the center, and let's like make it in the center. So is there is a modifier called screw. Bowl made. Yeah, done. Which is great. Now, if I wanted to, I could actually edit this, which is kind of the fun part. But yeah, so you can use that technique to make many different objects. But in this case, that's exactly what I want. So I'm going to apply that. I'm going to make sure. So you'll notice that this wasn't exactly in the middle, like so. So I'm just going to select all of those and then go to vertex mode and then go collapse at center, like so. And do the same for down here as well. Done. Now that's good. We need to flip all of this because it is red. So mesh, normals, flip. And then we show that's blue, which is what we want. Then we can get rid of that one. Now, if I wanted to, I could adjust that, but like this plate is not going to be very important. So I'm just going to leave that as is. Yeah, no, I think that's fine. And now let's have a look at UV. So we have this. Now what I want to do is get that loop there. So what is the best way? Let's go like this. We're going to mark a seam there. And I'm going to... I actually want another seam. And I'll explain this in a second. Okay, so I can't add a loop here because it's sort of closed in the middle. I can do it there. Go down. And then just flatten it, for example. There. Which is cool. And then we can sort of do another loop there. So let's mark those seams. Mark seam. Select it all. Unwrap. All right. So we have these assets here. I'm going to grab this one. This one. To do that again. And it probably won't work because, well, it will work, but not the way I want because it's a ring and that's what it looks like. So that's fine. Now with these ones, what we can do is change the map to open. Go to our trim sheet that we added, and then we have that. Now, what we want to do is, this is not going to have any detail. This is just going to be a plane. And this is where you start talking about like having a plane area on your texture if you want it. But I think we have enough that we can sort of just scale these down and just make it a single color asset without too much problems. The magic comes from these. So I'm going to grab kind of this one and then just like split that. Then we're going to sort of move that across there as we can to sort of get that UV map. Now, both of these are going to be sort of the same, so I'm actually going to scale this one up. Actually, I'm going to undo that and then move this one over the top and then do them together. Save a bit of time on that. Let's go this one. Might be a bit faster. So, okay. And then we can sort of just go align Y. Yep. Shift. And Shift R does whatever you last did. So that saves. Okay. Now we will need to align these a little bit better eventually, so make sure everything's, well, actually it doesn't really matter. But we do want these to be aligned as need be. So let's sort of grab those and make sure they are all together. And once again, Now, I'm sure, and I haven't looked into it yet, but there's got to be, pretty sure there's got to be an add-on, or there is a way to make this, like, do it quicker. Everyone else has, like Max and Maya and all of them. It's always weird when something gets less out of Blender because generally it does most things quite well. But there are some things that are, like, scarily missing. UV squares? All right, I'll check that one out. Yeah, I got one for weight painting as well because I find that quite frustrating. And it's all right. All right. So now we can scale it up really big. Because trim sheets is all about what it's using and less about the scale of it. That makes sense. So yeah, we have that. Now, if we want to, we could actually go to shading, click on our oh no, wait, what have I done here? Yeah. Okay, that's fine. Well, let's do this. Export FBX. Let's put it into, what space did I open? That's there. Yeah, okay. Well, that works because that's where I want it. No, that's a build. Two. I have way too many spaces. One day I'll finish one. It's going to be great. Well, 0, 1. Selected. Apply transform because I didn't do that at all. Actually, I'm going to do that again just to make sure it exports properly. Yeah. I'm trying not to do that. I've learned a lesson with Steam games where it's just like, I've bought all the games that I never play. So it's like, all right, let's not do that. Bowl. There we go. One bowl. Cool. Now we need our texture, which I put in the tutorials thing. So we can put that in the textures category. And we can make a new material called ceramic. Is that what? I don't want red bowls. No, white makes sense. Okay. So trim sheet goes in the normal. Make sure you fix it. And then we've got that, which looks pretty cool. And then we need to go to our bowl again. And why is that not? Export that. There we go. Okay. So if you look really close, you sort of have that edge, which is nice. And if you go on the bottom, we have this element there, which is also good. Now, we kind of want something under there, and we could probably do that quite easily. So let's see what we can do with that. So this is on the bottom. So I'm going to split that. And we kind of want this. Now, this is a good example of when you start using curved objects to make the same shape. So basically what I'm going to do, is basically detach each and every one of these. And then line them all up against the top. And because it's aligned well, it'll be cool. Is the technical reason why this works. Blender is a weird thing where if you don't move it after splitting it, it doesn't split it. So just a heads up on that. So that's why I'm moving all of these as I go. Okay. Now we actually want it exactly where that is. So hopefully it's not exact, but we can fix that in post. Basically, we all want all of these to basically be aligned, but it doesn't have to be precise because we can make it precise a bit later. So we're just doing this for now. And you'll find what I really like about trim sheets is sometimes you'll mistakenly find something really cool. So with the hex gallery, for example, some of the patterns that I found were because I was using hexes and very rectangular texture, and that just kind of worked really well. So let's go. Let's go X and align Y. Go. Scale Y0. Move that up. So GY. Get the sort of best effect, and we sort of want that kind of down. Straight down, which is Y. Maybe to about there. And let's scale these ones up a bit, like so. Okay, give that a shot. Right, so you have that. And I kind of like that. It's not smooth. Now, it could be because, once again, each one sort of should be, what would you call it? Flipped, actually, because that runs onto the next one. So that would be the way to get around that, I believe. That said, I actually don't mind that. That's kind of cool. Happy little accidents. Yeah, all right. All right. Now, the thing is, because if I had a cup, well, let's make another cup. Let's just make a cup. I should name that a bowl, to be honest. Oh, I need to fix that. Let's do that again with a cup. Add mesh cylinder. 32 is too high for a simple mug. Sorry, we should have mug. Let's see what 22 looks like. Maybe 24. helps if we go shade smooth. So once again, you won't see a lot of this. So that's actually too high. You don't need it to be that high. So I'm going to do maybe 18. Yeah, that works. Scale down. Go bold as reference. Who drinks coffee? I don't drink coffee. I know nothing about mugs. What is the best size mug? Once again, we're going to put shade smooth on. Did we put that on the bowl? Yeah, we did. So that should be fine. Okay. What do we need here? We need an inset, like so. We need E. A little bit lower there. And then we need sort of like a handle thing. Now over on here we got a line, but we actually want this one because that'll do the job well with an inset. Actually, I'll give that a shot. Scale Z, E. Let's try this approach. What have I done here? Oh, interesting. Let's get rid of that. No. Let's grab the faces and then we can do this one, which I actually don't use nearly enough. Nope. Nope. Bridge faces. That's the one. Cool. Let's try just merging by distance. 0.1. Nope. 0.1. Okay, that should be fine. Maybe. Yeah, okay. I'm gonna grab these ones and then bevel. Maybe that one. 1, 2. Now that looked weird, and I think that's because I haven't applied the transforms. So let's try again and see what that does. Yeah, so this looks better because I applied the transform, so it knows the scale that it is, if that makes sense. So that seems a little too far out. Yeah. Sure. And I feel like I should maybe bevel these ones as well. Now that's all gets messy, and I'll get rid of that in a sec to clean that up, but I think that's pretty good. Once again, you won't see the inside, so I don't need to bevel that. Hey, Kukion, how's it going? Yeah, it sounds like everyone buys too much stuff. Stop buying all the things. Although, once again, I am not someone who can get rid of those. And then we have some of these ones in here. Nope, that's right. That's fine. These two are not. Edges. Okay. And then we can clean that up. So. Yeah, much cleaner than it was 5 seconds ago. We never give up. Never surrender. Right. I'm going to maybe move those up a bit. Seems like a better place for these to be. And then, of course, move that one up so it suits. Yeah, it looks better. So, we have a cup. Now, that doesn't look great. But I think, actually, I want to try something. Because I'll be interested to see if this works. So I'm going to put a mark sharp there. Let's see if that works. I don't think so. Let's go to this one and try weighted normals, corners, and keep sharp. And I also have to put that on like so. Let's put that up to 60. And that's a lot better. With 90. Ugh. 80. There we go. Okay, that looks cool. Now, let's see. What can we do with our tileable? Kinda. Actually, I'm gonna do something else. This is too many polygons and we don't need to do it because reasons. So I'm just gonna delete them and combine these two. This I think comes from from character design. I think this is bad, but it's not. There's just nothing wrong with this at all. I will grab these though and move them slightly in. And like that's it. Like that's great. This is a little squishy though. And let's, I think we could we fix that? Yeah. That's fine. And same with this, I think. Just a little bit of a thing. That's good. What I might try and do though, I'm interested to see if we can just go that and then move it up. See if that has the same effect. Pretty much does with a lot less polygons. So I'm going to stick with that. I did like this though. So I do find that like, what would you call it? Smoothing does not work on 90-degree angles, but everything else is generally fine. So let's do that. Okay. Now these ones, I kind of want to do what we did with the last one. Not that. This one. Good. There we go. Because, yeah. And let's do a test in regards to flipping those UVs, and we'll see how that goes. So there's that. All right. Let's get to UV mapping after we apply that and apply our base. UV editing. Okay. Let's try. I'm just going to do this because why not? That's why. Not what I needed. Okay, so let's grab these. Let's grab maybe that one. Yep. Mark seam. Let's grab this one. Mark seam. Let's grab these two. Let's go all the way across. Like so. So that'll split them correctly. No. I'm going to do that as is. And then grab this one. Down there. Mark seam. Better. I could do some interesting normal maps around it. Well, I don't think I will though. Okay. Where is that? Somewhere in here. Where is that? Okay, sure. Why? What is going on? Interesting. What are we doing? Better. That's weird though. Not exactly sure why that is. Okay, yeah. Better way to do it. So what's of all of the assets you've bought, humble bundles or otherwise, what's the best thing you've actually bought? Like, tell us all what's everyone's secrets in regards to the best stuff. Right. These two, this one anyway, can go in there as well. Scale that down. Bit of size in there. This is the thing. I guess I can be in there. It doesn't really matter. Yep. And then you got these. So I'm going to straighten them up. So we can straighten them up. I think after today, I have to get that. What is it? UV squares? I've done that stuff before, but it's like, it's a pain. Okay. Now this may not work because I've got that line in the middle because I wanted to get the shading of it. But yeah, we'll give it a shot. Might be interesting. Now this one, we're going to do the split thing. So all of them are sort of split correctly and merged correctly. So we're going to split, and so this one is going to go there. So every second one I'm going to make over here. See how that goes. And luckily, I chose the right amount so that when they are flipped, they do work out. So this one's going to go over here. So trim sheets is kind of like an interesting beast because of some of the ways you do things, but in some ways you can get really quite creative in it in different ways um, than usual, and that kind of allows kind of unique opportunities to explore that don't usually come up. So how is there a flip? Mirror X. I think that's it. Let's a bit worried. Okay, let's do this. Okay, let's line these up a bit more. Okay. And see how that goes, I guess. Once again, I'm going to go down. In this case, we're just going to do the loop, if that makes sense. So I'm going to scale them up to about there. That works. All right. Mm, computers will do that. They kind of change. Like I had, like, was it the Amiga 500 was my first computer, and that was a long time ago. But yeah, kind of changed design. But unfortunately, in Australia, when I hit university, we didn't have any game design or anything like that. So I had to go to something a bit more traditional because Australia's choices were somewhat limited. I'll say that much. That said, it's all kind of worked out. But yeah, could have gone a bit differently if I was like 5 years later, maybe. What do we got? Mug. Back in here. Let's grab our mug. That one. Material is ceramic. That one. Apply. Okay. The normal on top looks good. Ah, it didn't work. Hang on. This time I'm going to go. Actually, let's move that up a bit because I want to have like a bit of a interior before that kicks in. And once again, like with when you're designing your thing, you can make these choices very easily. Where the UV is different than what you'd originally expected because something looks better later. It's kind of fun. I don't mind trim sheets. One day I want to like spend a lot of time and make a whole space with like one really cool trim sheet and see how far I can take it. Yeah, I've done okay. I've been teaching English in Japan for 16 years and just dabbling in a lot of this stuff. So it's it's a bit of a mixed bag. No complaints. Like I've definitely had like an easy lifestyle, I guess you could say. Full time is weird. See why? That's an interesting one. Why doesn't that do it properly? Hmm. Oh no, that's all normal map. Like that's a flat. So I'm doing all this with a trim sheet. So the like that is the bottom. And I thought if these line up, but it could be just because how normals work with these sort of things, where if it's well, let's try something a bit weird. I don't know why. I'm just gonna give it a shot. Kind of interested to see. Yeah. So that's my theory. And yeah, same sort of thing. So I wonder why I worked on my asset then. Oh. Ooh, okay. Let's try this. Ways to get around the limitations of weird things. Let's try that. Let's inset faces. So we've got that maybe. Scale that down to about there. Okay. Grab all of that. And then make this square. Nope, that's where we want it. This one doesn't matter, I don't think. So let's just move it in because it looks cooler. Then we can actually make it bigger. Yeah, all right. Oh, come on. That was a good theory. I guess these are constantly going to be right angled. So there's that. It's worth a try. Okay, so there are limitations to trim sheets. Kind of interested to see what happens if I do that. Probably the same thing, different reasons. Yeah, that's not bad though. I don't mind it. As I said, it matches the bowl. It's a style. It's a, what do you call it? It's a feature, not a bug. Now, where? This is the lobby, so let's put that in there. We also have our mug. Where'd the mug go? Mug. Actually, let's delete that one because I want to put it easier. So now all of these are going to be, once again, these are one material, two different assets, but if we put static on both of these, so I'm going to move that into the space asset because otherwise it will fail QA. We don't want that. So I'm going to make a prefab of this because if I ever want to edit anything, I can do that with one rather than all. And then I can, if I want to, I can also go to the material, ceramic white. I think it's down here. Enable GPU instancing on this one. Basically because we're going to use a ton. And then we're going to use static and then apply that to both of those. Then we can kind of make a ton, like, without issue. So I'm going to make a new prefab, so, no, a new empty, called, these aren't utensils. What are these? Stuff. Balls. No. Balls mugs. Very original. And these will be very good for being able to stack these when I do so. Let's get these ones, move them across. Get some mugs. These should probably be down. Let's flatten this up, make sure that that is the right amount, which is there. What I'll probably end up doing is getting one of the metal shelving things that they have eventually. But for now, I think we'll just add these. in there. Now, one thing to note with kind of any of these things is make sure that you kind of add some disarray. I think that's pretty important. Like, nowhere, digital or otherwise, is going to be perfect. So, um, just do stuff that uh, makes things look more lived in, I think. And I think that's a really good way to sort of add a bit of life without like actively needing life. I guess is one way to talk about it. So I find that a really good way to do it if you can. Static objects will allow you to do that. Oops. Yeah, better. Especially with things like this. So like already that looks like a kind of a better array of stuff. That feels a little more human. But yeah, I'll probably do a stack as well. All right. So let's bake that lighting, see what that looks like, and then I might call it. We covered a lot of stuff. Went into the overview of basically different methods of creating assets through custom UV assets, tiled material assets, and trim sheet assets. Then we made some trim sheet assets, even though they were sort of low polygon and simplified. And then generally, yeah, poly count, material count, low. That's across the board for Mona spaces. So I'm going to go quiet for a second because lighting is a pain. Yeah, those should do okay though. So one momento. Right? We have some mugs. It's got a line there. I think these are very. We didn't do the thing. I should do that. When you import assets, you should go to model and generate light map UVs. Apply. And then relight because you forgot that. While I'm here, I'm actually going to do this with everything to make sure that anything that I've added has done that. So that's a pretty important element. So I'm going to try that again because I forgot. So sorry, one moment. This time I'm going to save it though. Because I highly, highly, highly recommend always saving before you generate the light maps because if it breaks, everything breaks. Or it can anyway. So yeah, make sure to save and back up by copying the project file and then duplicating it and moving on with that one. Once you sort of get to a stage where you're happy with that, because there's nothing worse than losing a whole project because of a glitch in light mapping or a crash or something. So All right. So if we go to baked light maps, there it is. Super small. Um, Now that's like what, 5 polygons or something. So this is a 2048 by 2048. To get these up a little bit, what you could do is, where is it? Scale in light map. So let's double that. And because this is a, so everything is now 2, and that's why we use prefabs, because I don't have to do that with every single time. I think the bowls are actually pretty good. So I'm going to keep them as is. I think the mugs are the ones that we need to sort of update a bit. Yeah, I think that's pretty small. Let's do 3. We'll have like one 2048 by for each mug. All right, last try. All right, that's a little bit up, but not my bunch. Once again, like these are very small in the file size, so that's because they're very small here. So there are ways around that, but like you could scale the asset itself, like here. You could use the thing we did there, which was scale in light map, which is 3. Things like that. So there's a lot of different approaches to how you can adjust that as needed, but that looks pretty good for me. And once again, it's not an important asset. So if I run up to this, I'm not going to say, "Oh, look at these cups, mugs. The quality of them is super poor. I really wish I could do." It's like you're not going to do that. So it's always a choice of what's important to your space and what needs to be done to create a believable environment in the limitations you've got. So just for the sake of wrapping up, I'm going to save this and build this in Mona. I don't think I've made this a collider yet. And we've got our exports folder here. Drag and drop that there. And we have our asset. There we go. So once again, like they're not going to be big. Like they're very, very small. You're not going to look unless you really wanted to. But even then. And if you look at the issues we were having with that normal map, for example, like even that's gone. And they look like very good mugs. So yeah, choosing the right asset creation for the tool that you're making or the asset that you're making is definitely an interesting challenge, but a very, very important skill moving forward. So that's pretty cool. All right. There we go. Actually, we should do up here. Can't wait for video. Video's going to be so cool. There we go. So that's it for today's stream. Basically looking at the best ways to approach making your assets, making sure that they are game ready, and using UVs in different ways depending on the asset you're creating. And then a quick example of some bowls and mugs that we put into the karaoke space. So hopefully that's useful. If not, I hope you had fun. One of the above. And yeah, join us in the Discord if you haven't already. If you have, correct, well done. And looking forward to seeing what you guys make in the future. We'll wrap it up there. Have a good day and happy building.